What's up, gang? Mando's N-1 Starfighter came out on June 1st, and like many of you, I picked it up first day. And like many other LEGO fans, I really enjoyed this set. I just had one problem with it. While it looks amazing, the ship just simply isn't chrome enough. It doesn't quite match its look in universe. And I completely understand why they did that. I bet producing a ton of chrome bricks in this color or the lighter gray color is incredibly expensive, so I understand why they didn't do it, but that doesn't mean I can't be unhappy about it. So in order to do these modifications, we went ahead and picked up the Mandalorian's helmet. Now, I feel like some of you guys might be raising your eyebrows as to why I picked up a helmet set to modify a playset. And while I do love this helmet set itself, I'm not even going to build it. I'm just stripping off these chrome pieces, and we're going to toss it on the new N-1 Starfighter and see if we can make it look closer to how it looks in universe. But without further ado, let's go ahead and tear this box open, get our pieces out, and let's get to modifying. Alrighty guys, so here are the completed mods before you, and the first thing you probably notice is how shiny it is. As we've said, the main goal of this was to make this Starfighter a little bit more chrome, and that was definitely the bulk of the mods that we did, but we did also do some extra detailing and a little bit of my own touch here or there on the ship. Starting up front, of course, you can see this is where the bulk of the chrome pieces went. And immediately, I know some people won't like this look. The piece that was originally on this set was very smooth, and it didn't have any gaps or strong edges like these pieces do here. So I completely understand that this is not the look for some people. Some people just really don't like this jagged, but still smooth look. And I can completely understand that. But for those of you that don't mind this look, I think you're going to be pretty happy with how this turned out. I of course couldn't get the perfect shape of the N1 in universe, but I do think I got a nice gentle curve in there that slowly smooths up with these 1x3 tiles here up into that main engine. Around all this smooth chrome, you can see we have the standard cannons from the original set. I did think about reworking them and making them look a little bit beefier, but ultimately, after doing all the chrome mods, I determined I didn't need to. I like the cannons how they are. Maybe we can do something like that in a part 2. Smoothing down from the main chrome hole and past the cannons, you can see we have a little bit of a pattern leading into the main engines here. I of course didn't have enough chrome pieces to cover up the entire wings, so I just went for this small design. It follows the shape and the lines that the wings have already established and helps smooth into the engines that are on the sides. And speaking of, just like the original set, I kept the asymmetry that the engines have, so they do have separate details on each side. Most of this is standard from the original set. I believe I added a cheese slope on either side, and that was it. The only modding that I did to the engines was on either side with this small bar stud piece and one extra gold stud. I did this to cover up the smoothness of the front plates here. Although this didn't look bad, I thought it could be covered up, and after building this little assembly, I think it works great. Interestingly enough, I did actually upgrade the bottom side of this ship, or more so the bottom side of the front wings here. Before I flip it over, I'm going to pop a picture up on the screen here of what the ship looks like in universe. You can see on the wings of Mando's N1, it has these little notches cut into it. And while the LEGO set doesn't have that, I did try and capture that design on the bottom half. Now we're going to go ahead and flip it over, and you can see how I tried to do that with these inverted slopes here. It does create some small little notches, and it helps trick your eye into thinking that design is actually there and those cuts are actually put into the wing. And even from the bottom side, though you don't see it much in play, it is a nice gentle detail that I'm happy I was able to build in there. And while we're on the topic of the bottom side, you can see I actually still do have that spring-loaded shooter in there, and that's because the play feature is not gone per se, it's just unusable. So we'll go ahead and check that out by leading into this engine build. I did redesign it a little bit by just adding some smooth chrome on either side, bulking it up, making it look a little bit more powerful. The engine from the set didn't look bad, it had that nice sticker detailing on top, but ultimately it didn't look powerful enough to do what the ship does in universe. But as I was saying, the spring-loaded feature is not gone per se, it's just unusable. You cannot push this engine piece down anymore. However, if you grab by the chrome cheese slopes on either side and lift off this top plate, you can't actually push this down far enough to launch a spring-loaded missile. I found it very easy when grabbing the set in play, accidentally pressing on this engine and shooting missiles all over my room, so I'm a little happy that this is unusable, but it's still very easy to use just by peeling off the top plate. And around the engine here, as we transition into the more gray part of the ship, I did try and add a little bit of chrome here or there on the sides to help blend the transition. You can even see that I use chrome cheese slopes on this little indentation that's barely seen covered by these triangular plates. But moving on from that, and more so in the gray part of the ship, we do still have this same storage feature. This has the exact same amount of storage space from the original set, and I actually got an extra belt piece for my Pelimoto figure, so I went ahead and tossed that in there so I could toss it on Mando when he disembarks. But popping the lid back on, you can see the little bit of extra detailing that we did. The lid to this storage section in the original set was very plain, so I went ahead and added some extra industrial greebling detail. I just wanted this middle section to look a little more industrial and look like it had a little bit more going on than the original set provided. But moving just past that, we now have this black stripe here just before the cockpit, and that was sort of on the original set. The original set really only had the black vented cheese slope here and then some dark plates in the middle here, so it didn't really capture that stripe look too well, so I went ahead and added on some of the plates that were from Mando's visor, and I think it's a whole lot more pronounced and it looks a lot better. And then along with the yellow/orange that's around the cockpit, it really helps break up the color scheme of the chrome and the gray. But speaking of, now we can go ahead and move on to the cockpit. And you'll be happy to know that I actually didn't change this area at all. Minus two small black slope pieces that I added on either side of Mando's chair, I didn't touch this space at all. And Mando's chair and space is pretty adequate for the minifigure, along with a big mod that I do to all my sets, and I'm sure you guys know this, he's sitting at a good eye line and he actually looks like he can see out of the ship. That's one mod that I try and do to every LEGO Star Wars set, is to make sure the pilot can actually see out of their windscreen. And I know it's not a big deal because they're just toys and they don't actually see, but it's a big deal to me and it's something I strive for, so I'm happy that the original set already had that. On the underside, I didn't actually modify this engine too much, minus adding a few extra pieces on there. I did just add a few plates on top so that when I'm playing with it, I can't push this engine up and break it off by pushing up. This engine piece still does suffer from the same fragility that came on the original set by only being attached by these 4 studs on the inside. But putting those plates on top just makes it to where it falls off at one less angle. But around the astromech port that is now Grogu's pod, you can see I just have a small bit of detailing going with some miscellaneous pieces here. We have some chrome cheese slopes on either side, and as well as some chrome going down the spine of the ship to help smooth out the back and add some chrome into this rear area. And then with adding this detail on the side, we had to change up the plates that the pod's made out of so it's not just a circle anymore. And that did help eliminate some of the cockpit gap that was on the original set. Of course, you can see there is still a small gap, but it is minimized from the original set. And then inside Grogu's pod, though, we did actually change up a few things. I gave him his favorite little ball from Mando's joystick on the original Razor Crest. And then as well, that 1x2 smooth tan tile is actually loose inside this space. I like to think of that as a little blanket or a pillow for Grogu to lay down on. Along with the smooth tile being loose, this stud is actually loose in here, but if you wedge it between Grogu's hand and the wall, it sits in there just fine and it's not going to fall out. So moving back from Grogu's comfy upgraded pod, we just have the tail end here. And the only mods I did was breaking up this original piping detail that was here. I just went ahead and added an extra gold bar that came with the original set, and then changed around some of the studs and the bar piece that was on this strut. The set had it in all black, and that looked just fine, but I wanted to break it up with a little bit of gold since I had the extra bar piece laying around. So that's pretty much all the big mods that we've done to the Mandalorian Starfighter using Mando's helmet. If you guys wanted to, I could go over every little teeny little mod that I did. It's hard to see, but I added some miscellaneous pieces beneath this vented cheese slope for some detail. I changed out the 1x2 grill piece that was on the side-facing studs for some extra smooth detail. I added one cheese slope on either engine to help fill out the empty space. I added these weird round pieces on either side of Grogu's chamber. We changed out the plating on the other side to add more angled plates to help wedge towards the front. And okay, I think that pretty much covers all the mods that we did to the Mandalorian Starfighter. So this was a super fun build and challenge of sorts, limiting myself to only the Mandalorian helmet pieces, which in my head, I would never think to grab a helmet set to modify a ship, but I guess it works out sometimes. And like I said in the beginning, there's probably going to be a part 2 to this video. I have a ton of extra pieces from the Mandalorian's helmet, so I'm thinking I can make a display stand for the Mandalorian Starfighter out of the display stand for the Mandalorian's helmet. So make sure you subscribe so you can see that video and any other alternate builds or mods that I post in the future. And I hope you guys enjoyed this build and all the mods that we did to the Mandalorian Starfighter. I'm really happy we were able to chrome out the front of this ship while still staying relatively true to the N-1 Starfighter shape. But I really want to hear what you guys have to say down below, so go ahead and comment your thoughts on these mods and any suggestions you have for any alternate builds or mods that you guys want me to do. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace, fellas.